Wait, wait, are those other people's? Wait, hang on. Hello everyone, TheSkilledRoy here, back with another Legends of Runeterra video. And today we are looking at the new BARD reveal, who was just revealed today. I am super excited to see what he does. Obviously, we just saw how the chimes are kind of like this interesting new sort of hand buff archetype, so we'll have to see how they operate overall, but I'm excited to see what his origin is, as he's almost certainly going to be a Runeterran champion. Well, anyways, let's hop right in. Alright, now before we even get started, I can't really tell what the top portal is, but on the bottom left you can actually see Chip. Chip's just vibing, having a good time. And on the far right we have this sort of like demonic figure. It looks like it has long hair but it has like a cane. The armor looks almost Shuriman almost? Like the gold. It could be maybe one of the Darken. It's hard to say for sure who this is, but anyways, let's get started. BARD harmonizes with the cosmos. Here we go.
Here I am! Wherever here is.
Alright, so we got BARD. Origin, the Wandering Caretaker, of course. Attack, plant 3 chimes on random cards in your deck. You've increased the total stats of allies in play or in hand by 20 plus. Wow, okay. Oh, but that's not too bad. +1/+1 would technically mean you can do it 10 times, and that's relatively easy to do. Okay. And the Wandering Caretaker is you may put any cards that plant chimes into your deck during deck building. Interesting. It's a bit of an interesting one right there. I'm not sure how many cards that is, considering how many we've seen thus far. And then round start, plant a chime in your deck for each BARD that has started in your game. Wow, wait, that's actually crazy. So that means every turn you're typically adding 3 chimes into your deck. That's pretty good. Okay, all right. Let's just read back again. I didn't see that card. There we go. Cosmic Binding is a 5-mana card that deals 2 to an enemy and stuns another. Plant 3 chimes on random cards in your deck. Interesting. So it's typically fast speed stuns are typically about 3 mana, and this is an extra 2 damage on top of that, and gives you chimes. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, all right. Draw a follower, then activate the effects of all boons in the top 3 cards of your deck. Wow. And then create a BARD in your deck. Now, these are the champion spells for the Runeterran champions, meaning there's no way to get them easily. You can't just add them to your deck. They are only for if you have drawn 2 BARDs. So in that case, it's probably powerful enough then. So it's a pretty interesting idea. Keeper, when I'm summoned, plant a chime on the top card of your deck and then double the boons in your deck. Ooh, that's pretty crazy. Especially with how many you'll get at that point with BARD. Like, you'll have so many that it's like, damn, that seems actually really good. Okay. 5. Wait. Wait, are those other people's? Wait, hang on. The Shyvana, Galio, Shurima. Hang on. Let's see what these are. So we got Shyvana there. We got Galio there. Is that Maokai? It looks like... No, it's Malphite. Okay, that's Malphite. And then we have Shurima. Of course, the level 3 Azir level up. Wow, that's crazy. What a creative level of animation. I'm a huge fan of that. Okay, so BARD is when he attacks now, he can plant 6 chimes on random cards in your deck, sure. And when you activate a chime, grant +1/+1 to a random ally in play. Wow, so basically doubles the value of your chimes and you get them immediately as well. That seems really good. Now, notably, he also doesn't have any keywords now. He's still a vanilla card, so that's rather interesting. Okay, not bad. All right, let's see how this goes. Yeah, that's Medulli gigantic. Look at that beefy boy.
The river always provides.
I see, so you get the draw, and then you'll get the keywords added on to some units. Kill
That's gotta sting.
Damn. Okay. That's crazy. Wow. Okay, that's not too bad at all. Not too bad. Now, it's interesting, though, is that, like, the Wandering Caretaker, you must put cards that plant chimes into your deck, but there's very few of those. Like, I think, is this not all of them right here? Like, these 5? Like, Jhin has, like, what, 30 to 40 cards he can add, and BARD has 5? That seems wildly disproportionate. We'll have to see, like, if any more get added after, but typically this is what I would expect, because we're almost running out of cards for the expansion. So, like, is BARD a Runeterran who only gets to add 5 cards? Like, huh. All right, well, I guess let's review these cards and take a look at each of them. All right, so first up we have is BARD, the Bell Ringer, the 1 mana 2/1. When I'm summoned, plant a chime on the top card of your deck. So obviously chimes give you a random ally in hand, +1/+1. This is actually very equivalent to Omen Hawk. Omen Hawk is obviously the 1 mana 1/1 and Failure, which gives the top 2 units in your deck +1/+1. And this is a bit different where it activates on the top card of your deck and then gives an ally in your hand. So it can affect cards you've already started in your hand with, which are typically cards you would kept because obviously of how the mulligan rules work. It's generally better for you to keep those cards in your hand so that you can easily activate BARD as well. So in a way, it feels almost like a better Omen Hawk in a lot of ways. I think, and most importantly though, obviously it's in Bandle City as well, so Bandle City can really make use of those extra stats, especially for the units that care about units that are weaker than it. So I think in general, BARD seems to be a really good card, not even like counting the fact that you can play him in BARD decks. I think you just play this card in Bandle City decks in general. This card just seems great. It's hard to really see any downsides to this card. It's a 1 mana 3/2, essentially. Split up across 2 different bodies, of course, but like typically that's fine because you're gonna trade with the 1-drop, trade into their 1-drop, and then you're still gonna have +1/+1 on top of a value on top of that. So yeah, BARD seems really good. I'm super down for him. Let's go. All right, next up we have is Esmus, the Breath of the World, the 2 mana 0/2. When I'm summoned, plant a chime on the top card of your deck, so similar to BARD, and then support, grant my supported ally +1/+1. Wow, what a crazy card. It's hard to believe that this card and TRE exist in the same game. This card seems really, really insane. So first of all, right off the bat, it's a 2 mana 1/3 with the bonus of its chime. And typically, since it's elusive and it has 2 health, for those of you who weren't around, Young Witch was insanely powerful when it was at a 1/2, and it only gave +1 attack and quick attack. This will give you +1/+1, so no keyword, but since it's also elusive, it's also very difficult to sort of nail down. Not to mention the stats are permanent, so you're able to sort of snowball a lead very, very quickly. I wonder if War Chefs can finally get its health point back when we're creating cards like Esmus, which create value on multiple angles. Like if you played a 1-drop like BARD, for example, and then you played Esmus, for example, right afterwards, you're attacking and generating essentially a 2/4 worth of stats on turn 2 because you're going to give +1/+1, you have +1/+1 on the chime, and it already has 0/2 in stats. And it only gets better from there. Like Esmus just seems like a card that quickly runs away with the game, and even if the opponent removes it, you're pretty happy. You're pretty happy because you're still getting chime value. Yeah, card seems really solid. I don't really know what else to say with this, honestly. It seems really good, so seems good to me. And last up we have Mystic Vortex. It's just a 2 mana landmark in Targon. When I'm summoned or when I count down, plant 3 chimes on random cards in your deck. Countdown 2, draw 1. So you play it, that's 3. Countdowns to 1, that's 3. Countdowns to 0, that's 3. So you're gonna get +9/+9 worth of stats across random cards in your deck, and you also get to draw a card. Before you freak out, that seems really strong, but current cards in the game already do this, such as that 3-drop in Shurima, which gives +3/+3 to 3 different cards in your deck. It's kind of similar to that, generally speaking. But what's nice about this card is though that it does replace itself, but it is a little slow. Like getting random buffs to random units in your deck, you're gonna have to high roll those to really feel like impactful with them, or use cards that perhaps can more easily let you find chimes. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen too many of those yet. But the card seems decent. I think this card is good as long as we find some more synergy pieces for chimes, but on its own, I'm not a huge fan of it. That's generally how I feel. All right, next up we have is Cosmic Binding, the 5 mana fast speed spell in Bandle City, which does 2 to an enemy and stuns another. You can plant 3 chimes on random cards in your deck. Okay, so obviously this card is pretty comparable to other fast speed stuns we have existing in the game already. For example, you have things like the Palm, which is going to be like a stun an enemy and then get a 3/2. And this is kind of just like stun an enemy and shoot a Mystic Shot, right? And for that value at 5 mana, that's pretty good. It lets you answer an open attack pretty well, being able to kill one of their smaller units and stun their bigger unit. And then also getting value on chimes on top of that. Now the chime value, if I'm being honest, it's hard really to designate how much mana 3 chimes is worth. I'd probably say less than half a mana. But it's still something. It's something, especially if you have synergy pieces, and especially if you get more ways to more reliably draw cards that specifically have chimes on them. So I think this card is gonna be good specifically in BARD decks because obviously you can get it added in for free. But all outside of that, I'm not too certain if it's something you'd really want to be running. It's a pretty decent card, but does feel pretty expensive overall, if I had to say. All right, next up we're gonna talk about Medulli, the Gatekeeper. He is a 6 mana 4/6. When I'm summoned, plant a chime on the top card of your deck, and then double the boons in your deck. So first things first, getting a chime when you first play it, essentially making it a 6 mana 5/6, but then it doubles it, so technically it's going to be a 6 mana 6/7, 6/8, but the issue I'm having with it, though, even though it has a pretty decent stat total on the onset here, is that it's relatively slow. You're going to play this into the late game on turn 6. You're going to have a lot of boons in your deck at that point already because of Bard's basic origin ability, which is going to give you the ability to do 3 times 6 at minimum because of the origin trait, which would be 18. So like 18 times 2, obviously, 36. So 36 plus the one you get planted, so 38. Like it can get pretty crazy pretty quickly. The real question really becomes, is there reliable ways to get more chimes more frequently, or are we talking like you're gonna get 2 per turn max type of thing? And that's a little bit harder to sort of get 100% behind, I think. I think the card's neat, but when you're hitting 6 mana, you do kind of need to be doing something pretty dramatic, and this is more investing into future turns than it really does feel like inherently doing something great on turn 6. So we'll have to see where that sort of looks. And who knows, maybe Bard's Chimes up to that point can carry you in sheer tempo, that your Medulli is way higher than just a 6 mana 4/6. But without any sort of keyword attached, it's really hard to sort of see it impacting things too much. We'll have to see just how good it is and see, and test it, obviously, especially because you'll notice that it doesn't double the chimes in your deck, it doubles the boons in your deck. So that can tell us that most likely there's going to be other boons coming out that aren't just going to be chimes. We might not have seen them yet, but hypothetically, if there's other powerful boons out there, it'd be incredibly powerful. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind of. All right, and last up we have BARD and BARD's Traveler's Call. So first off, BARD, Origin, the Wandering Caretaker. So his abilities that you may put any number of amount of cards that have chimes into your deck. So no matter what region they are, you can all add them in. And then round start, plant a chime into your deck for each BARD that started the game in your deck. So basically this means that if you had 3 bards in your deck, you are essentially going to be able to have 3 extra chimes every single round start since the beginning of the game. That is very, very powerful. I think that's probably the main reason why you'd be playing all these chime cards. The chime cards are decent on their own, but you can sort of hit a critical mass by having Bard and 3 of him in the deck, so you can get so many that, like, when your Medulli hits the board later, you have like 500 in your deck. And I think that's where the card gets particularly spooky. Now his attack effect is pretty simple. Plant 3 more chimes on random cards in your deck, and then you've increased the total stats of allies in play or hand by 20 plus. That seems like a lot, but honestly, especially with how many chimes you're going to be getting, you only need to hit 10 chimes for this to activate, which is really solid. And that's not even counting any other additional buff effects, such as, for example, like the spawn triggers, for example, from Alawi, for example, are really good for getting high amount of stats very quickly. So I think honestly, like, hitting 20 plus is rather trivial. Like, I think that's something you can definitely easily do. So that seems pretty simple to me. And then of course, his level up is going to be attack, plant 6 charms instead of 3. And then when you activate a chime, sorry, I keep calling it charms, activate 6 chimes instead of 3. And when you activate a chime, grant +1/+1 to a random ally in play, essentially doubling the value of your chimes, because not only does it buff an ally in your hand, but it also buffs one on the board as well, allowing you to make use of those stats much sooner, as well as giving you some really interesting sort of combat situations where you can like play draw spells or activate your boon spells somehow off the top of your deck using various cards and get in combat buffs right away. And that seems really, really strong, especially with how many chimes you can have at that point between Medulli, Bard's passive, and the other units we've seen thus far. So yeah, I think Bard's pretty decent. Bard's champion spell, of course, is also the Bard's Traveler's Call. Draw a follower, then activate the effects of all boons in the top 3 cards of your deck. Create a Bard in your deck. So this is really strong. It lets you essentially have 4 cards worth of value to check for chimes, meaning you're going to hit at least a couple, I imagine. So I think the card is pretty solid. It probably lets you level up your Bard very quickly, or if you have a Bard already on the board, it allows you to get a ton of stats onto your units on the board because you're seeing 4 cards worth of chimes. So I think that's really, really good. Obviously, there's going to be situations where you miss or you hit the wrong amount of things, but across the board, I would say this is definitely a very, very solid card. Now, one thing that's really important to note as well, by the way, just like I imagine, just like Karina, when Karina activates the traps in your top 5 of your deck cards in your deck, the traps stay there. So I imagine if Bard activates all boons in the top cards of your deck, the boons will still be there for you to double dip on. So that's really, really good as well. So I think that in general, Bard's champion spell is very, very powerful, and thank God you can't add it to your deck normally. So I think Bard's really interesting in that respect. I think I have 2 sort of statements on Bard. I think Bard is actually good in terms of a card. I think he's powerful in that you can just add a bunch of elusive cards to your deck and you're going to win the game purely off of how many random free stats you'll get. You'll be able to play like, just like, hey, here's my 7/8 Zed, you know what I mean? Like, and just absolutely destroy someone. You already have really powerful, great chime creators like Esmus, for example, which is already an elusive. Like if you get 1 or 2 activations on Esmus alone, like the card is insane. So I think Chimes does feel, unfortunately to me, a little high rolly for what I was really looking for from Bard. It definitely feels like you'll just win some games because, oops, I hit 2 charms on turn 2 and they both hit my elusive in hand and now I'm gonna kill you. I don't want to be so reductive like that, but it definitely does feel like that's going to be one of the best ways to play Bard, is to run a bunch of really powerful units that scale well with stats. So that's like, for example, just like elusives or like Zed. Those are probably your 2 best cards, I think, off the top of my head. So it's really hard to say for sure just how good Bard is going to be without really playtesting him, because I have faith that this is definitely one of the things they had to have tested, because this is just too obvious. But I'm curious if Bard only having like 5 cards here is enough to make Bard like interesting enough from a Runeterran's perspective, right? Like, one really great thing about Jhin is that when Jhin was created, there's so much variety among units with skills that like there's been aggro versions and control versions of Jhin being made, and they're both like really interesting and engaging ideas. With Bard, with only having 5 cards to choose from and all of them just being new cards, it's really hard to like justify or understand how you're supposed to build the deck without just like grabbing 3 of each of these cards and then just choosing your favorite deck that scales well with stats and putting them together, you know? So that's probably the only difficult thing I'm sort of having here looking at Bard's package, is like, where is the deck building? Because like, I think one really great thing about Jhin and Runeterrans as a concept is that deck building is so unique and so vast. But for Bard, it doesn't really feel that way. It definitely does feel, at least from the onset here, that I'm just going to control, like, copy 3 of each of these chime creators into my deck and call it a day. I'm really hoping we get some more chime units, chime cards, because right now it's really odd because like we have Targon chime cards and we have Bandle City charm cards. Chime cards. So why isn't Bard just a Bandle City or Targon champion then? You know what I mean, guys? I don't want to hate on this design too much, but it definitely does feel as though like it misses the mark on what Runeterrans are meant to be if these are the only 5 cards we're getting for Bard this expansion. Here's hoping that it's not, though, because I really think that Bard could be a lot more interesting than this, and I think that with the proper support and more diversity in how to get these chimes, you can do a lot more interesting deck building choices. Right now, it definitely does feel a little like play chimes, play elusives, win the game, or play chimes, play Alawi, win the game. And that is interesting, but it definitely does feel like there's not much deck building for a concept that should be very broad. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to give Bard a shot and really just sort of go crazy with how many stats I can get on units. I'm hoping that we get some more chime cards that can really sort of expand Bard's region beyond just the 5 cards we got. But we'll have to see as we get closer to the release date. They could maybe perhaps come at a different time. Who knows? Anyways, though, thank you again so much for watching, everyone. If you want to come and hang out and discuss these cards in my Discord, there will be a link in the description. Or, of course, you can check out all my information, all this cool stuff I cover, all on my Twitter as well. Anyways, I will see you all next time. Peace out.